All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead with the next session, which is a fireside chat. And do share your experiences, your learnings, and of course, everything that you're exploring. We'll talk about the platform features and all the things that you're engaging with in detail, maybe right after this fireside chat. But right now, when I look at many organizations that have embarked on the journey of AI and ML, data analytics to accelerate their digital transformation, there's also a particular pattern that has been noticed, which is that a very few are successful as the legacy data infrastructure doesn't meet these ever demanding and also the high performing workloads, so as to say. Now, in this particular session, we will cover, and in fact, our experts are going to cover some real life customer success stories around the same topics. I'm sure this is going to be very, very helpful for all of us. What's the wait for? Join me in warmly welcoming Suraj Kotipalli, the APAC business leader, content and data intelligence solutions from Hitachi Vantara. Well, this particular fireside chat would be moderated by Biswajit, the Director Advisory Analytics, AI Data Lake, CVM from KPMG in India. Biswajit, I'm just straight away giving the strings of the conversation to you.
Hey everyone, technology conversations or digital transformation conversations are just not complete without talking about the world of data and AI. And today, any business leader, and notice I say business leader or not technology leader, will have a very articulated, overt ambition of leveraging all of these. And therefore, you know, the whole analogy around data being the new oil, etc. And this is also one of my pet peeves. I mean, where is it that you actually dig an oil well, dunk a bucket in, pull up some oil, pour it into a car and drive off? I mean, that never happens. There is an entire value chain to how you take the crude and make it consumable. Therefore, I keep asking people, if data is the new oil, where is your refinery, right? And that's essentially what we want to talk about today, because the days of doing MVPs and multiple siloed initiatives, these toe dipping exercises, etc., have given way to much more cohesive data and AI plans. And that's when the rubber really hits the road for many organizations when they try and do this at scale and efficiently. And so while there's a lot of the thinking in the first phase was to do with the what part of it, right? What do I do with my data, etc. The current nightmare for technology leaders is more the how. So how do I do it at scale? How do I do it efficiently? And this is obviously further compounded by this entire, need for speed, the whole quick data versus big data thing, the FOMO on opportunities and the perishability of ideas and insights. And these have all ganged up together to become a technology leader's nightmare, right? And who better to have a chat on this than with you, Suraj? I mean, obviously, while currently with HV, you lead a large team of SMEs in APAC for the data intelligence and content solution portfolio, but you have been in similar positions before, right? But focused on hybrid cloud, software-defined data centers, etc. And prior to this, of course, you spent more than a decade with Microsoft. So you have had a ringside view of the evolution of the entire ecosystem, right? So, and in general, legacy data infrastructure just isn't cutting it anymore. And you have walked this walk with many of your customers. So I think it would be interesting for everyone to hear what specific challenges and trends have you experienced for customers who have embarked on this AI ML journey.
Good question, Biswa. First of all, hello and good to see you on the call. When you really talk about data and data being the new oil, it really scares when you look at the oil prices in the Sensex right now. Okay. Well, coming back to your question, I think a lot of organizations have moved into this AI ML journey, the data analytics journey, to really get the value out of the data they have, right? But a very few organizations have been successful. That's primarily because of the legacy data infrastructure they have. And just to really understand what is the real bottleneck here, the AI, ML, and data analytics workloads are really data-intensive applications, right? They're data-driven applications. So they need to really go through the entire data, parse it, kind of create algorithms to get the best value out of those data. And there's really high compute-intensive applications. So the challenge is the traditional storage systems cannot meet those high performance, high computing environments where you have to feed the data into those environments, right? So basically the compute and the storage has to, blend together so that these applications can really perform very well. So that's number one. So basically the traditional file systems or traditional block storage doesn't really work, right? You really need some kind of high performance parallel file system kind of solution. This was customers what we are seeing right now. The second important one is to get the best benefit out of the AI ML applications. Or there are a vast number of applications available in the cloud, right? So cloud brings innovation. There are so many applications available in the cloud. Customers are deploying on-prem. So really, the data infrastructure needs to be hybrid. So that customers can use both the cloud applications as well as on-prem and get the best value out of it. Data application, all these AI/ML applications are not static. They're really dynamic workloads. So which means there should be some kind of elasticity built into the data infrastructure. That's very, very important. But last but not least, I think the security compliance also becomes very, very critical for organizations when they are in this journey. So this is exactly what we are seeing are those 4 or 5 key challenges, customers who have really gone into this journey and really struggling, and and that's where we bring in some kind of value for customers.
So I absolutely agree, Suraj. Many times, and with our customers, we've seen this happen, right? Once you try and scale, what you're essentially almost trying to do is you're trying to have a Formula One race with, unfortunately, a Maruti 800 car, right? And it was built, and there is nothing wrong with it, right? It was built for a different reason, and it does that very well. But at that point of time, it was never meant to evolve into doing something which now you're asking it to do, right? And I think that's where a lot of the modernization conversations are happening, because initially, all our old stacks were built as bolt-ons, right? So you would just bolt on another piece and it would work, and then some more and it would work. And then suddenly you realize that it's not only, before it was more about efficiency, now it is also about capabilities, and the old stacks just don't bring that capability. Forget about the efficiency at all, right? And of course, in your journey with your customers, you have seen a lot of them where you bring your entire technology stack to be able to help them, the whole solutioning, etc. And I think it would be interesting for everybody to hear a large overview of what Hitachi Vantara brings to the table in terms of solutions in this space.
Sure, I will definitely cover that. At the same time, I will also want to give you some real life examples so that it makes the story much more powerful, right? What are we doing as Hitachi Vantara? What we do is we bring the ecosystem. So we believe in the ecosystem of solutions, right? So we have a very high performance parallel file system solution. We call it as content solution for file, Hitachi content solution for file. This is really the purpose built, the new generation parallel file system, right? It's the fastest shared file system as per all the benchmark reports that we have. So what we do is, when we bring that solution, we can actually address literally any protocol, any file types that customers are looking, both structured as well as unstructured. So we can really scale the data, right? Because the most critical thing for the AI/ML is actually ability to scale, right? So we can start with as small as 6 nodes and go to thousands of nodes, and we bring all this NVMe technology clustered together into one large data pool. So what happens is, when you're running a very high performing AI/ML application, you're also running a data platform which is running on a high performance file system. So they can actually feed the data into that compute environment. So then the applications can really read the data and then perform, right? We literally support any protocols, whether it is SMB, NFS, S3, POSIX. So that's another important, because this data is not just coming from one source, it's coming from multiple protocols, right? The other important point when I was talking about is about the data tiering. Though the data is so huge in the organization, when the applications are running, at any point in time, they only need certain part of the data, which is, we really call it as hot data, right? So then you have this hot, cold, and warm, and data, different tiering capabilities. So with the natural object storage platform, what we do is we will able to do not only running the hot data in the high performance NVMe parallel file system, we can also tier the cold data and the warm data into a low cost object storage kind of solutions, where customers can significantly see benefits in terms of cost savings, right? And this whole environment is hybrid cloud ready. What we also believe is in the ecosystem. So a lot of good applications are available. Take the example of AWS SageMaker, right? It's a very popular ML application. So customers want to go and leverage that from the SageMaker solution for AWS, but the data is sitting on-prem, right? So what Hitachi can do here is we will be able to replicate the data into the cloud, use the cloud with those SageMaker or any other popular AI ML applications, process the data, get the outcomes that you want, and once the outcome is come, just only bring that metadata back on-prem. Okay, so process the data, use the application, bring the metadata back, and delete the data in the cloud. So this is beautiful for customers. They never lose the data. Data is always on-prem. Move to the cloud, process it, get the outcome, and simply delete the data. So there is no ingress, egress costs involved as well. So these are the scenarios we bring in as part of the ecosystem. And obviously, it's all inbuilt with security and role-based access controls, encryption at rest, encryption on the transit, all are inbuilt as part of the solution. So we have done this with many customers. I would like to talk a little bit about the Samsung use case, where we have really saved customer a lot of cost for their for the solution, the data analytics solution they have.
I think, Suraj, and this is what I really like, how the conversations around the data ecosystems, the data platforms have really changed, right? Initially, I used to, when I started doing that, and at that point of time, this wasn't really a sexy job, right? We were thought of as geeks. It's suddenly in the last 4 or 5 years, suddenly we have become glamorous, right? I used to use this framework called CDA. I used to say collect, detect, and act. Because so you collect all the data that you can in one place, detect the transactions or the events that you need an intervention on, and act on it. Because if you don't act on it, the entire exercise is academic, right? You aren't really doing anything. Right. And that was okay when we were doing the select set of organizations. Now, large organizations, one of the major expenses is in moving data around to be able to analyze it, right? People do want the data to remain where it is. And you sort of have a mesh fabric on top where I should be able to analyze data from various places without having to physically move the data. And data has mass. We sometimes forget, right? We think it's digital, but data has mass. When you move it, there are cost and effort and time and everything involved, right? And I think this is brilliant. Like you said, I remember you talking about one of your customers, Samsung, and people would think, right, technology giant would have their entire infrastructure worked out, but everybody needs help with it, right? We would love to hear about Samsung, and then maybe if we have time, because nothing is better than a real life experience, right? So if we have time, maybe we'd want to move on to a couple of other customers you were talking about with me earlier.
Sure. I mean, there are plenty of examples that we have. I mean, this is not just limited to one industry, right, Biswa? So banks are banking and financial is a big sector moving into AI/ML. We see a lot of manufacturing there's a big transformation going on. I'll talk about the Samsung use case. We are seeing a big adoption of AI/ML in the life sciences and healthcare. So that's where we are seeing a lot of progress as well. So let me talk about this Samsung. So Samsung is a big conglomerate. We have Samsung Display as our customer. So the Samsung Display is built all those big TV, big display panels, right? The LED and the 4K, 8K kind of resolution panels. What happens is they build the big panels, and then they deliver those panels to the Samsung Group companies and other customers of theirs, where they will actually cut those panels into smaller ones, like the TV panels, the mobiles, the laptops, the tablets, whatever, right? All of those. So that's the customer. They needed a solution where they can enhance and improve their quality controls and analytics around those manufacturing of those display panels. So I mean, how we did that is there are two types of data that particularly that customer has. One is the image data of those panels. The second one is the data that is coming from the sensors. When they're really manufacturing this, there's a sensors there. A lot of data is coming through logs, text data. So the data that comes from those real time, from those sensors, when those manufacturing units are working, it all comes through these Kafka nodes, a lot of data streaming at a very fast pace the real-time data comes from those log files. The other one is the batch data, which is coming from the images, right? And there are different applications there they have. So what we built is we built some kind of a data hub, a kind of high performing parallel file system, which is powered by NVMe technology, where we store all the data that is coming from the sensors as well as the data coming from the other applications. We call them as batch data. All of that stored there, and then they use multiple protocols to bring this data. Then we run applications there with, of course, I talked about the ecosystem. So they're using some solutions like ScreamDB and Tableau for visualization and some other data cataloging solutions. So we feed that data from our high-performance file system into those applications. But before that, we kind of tier it, we manage the data, we put this into small chunks so that these applications can read the data pretty fast, right? So that's the central data hub that we built in. And before our solution, Samsung used to typically take around 8 to 10 hours to really process the data, understand where the manufacturing defect is, and really kind of send it back to their quality control. But in the new environment, they're able to process the data and detect those issues and quality issues within minutes, right? So that's a very, very important benefit. If you can translate that into the business benefits, it's millions of dollars of cost savings when you're able to detect those errors and issues, right? The quality issues right at the manufacturing, right? The second one is the data is so huge. You can imagine this manufacturing. There's so many images, so many log files. Now, because of this data hub that we built in, we're able to tier the data, which is hot, cold, and warm, and manage the data without any backups, anything like that. So that really helped customer to kind of manage the data without any data protection costs or backup costs. At the same time, keep what data which is important at that minute for analysis, and rest of the data can just go for compliance purpose. So these are some great benefits that Samsung got from it. I have some good examples from automakers like electrical vehicles. So we have another case study on that. I don't think we have enough time to cover that. We have something around the media industry with Disney, and very interesting use cases. Yeah. I hope that gives you a good sense of what exactly I'm talking about. How do this data infrastructure helps the AI/ML use cases?
Absolutely, Suraj. Also, it resonates, right? Because so I do a lot of work with telcos and banks, and now manufacturing in this space. And 2-3 things we have noticed, right? Especially in Southeast Asia and India, right? Banks and telcos, one of the major issues is that core banking systems are not going to go on cloud anytime soon because of the entire gray area on regulatory, etc. Yeah. But having to build grounds up an ecosystem which does this just on-prem is a larger investment for them, and therefore they want to do that part in the cloud, right? And a solution like yours is very, very apt for it. In manufacturing, they've already sunk millions of dollars into their OT systems, which are going to remain where they are. They are not going to suddenly just uproot them and take them to the cloud, but they still want to be able to do some of these analytics on leveraging cloud infrastructure. And I think that's the area where people have been struggling to find a hybrid solution which really works for everybody. So I think it's brilliant. Maybe a minute on Disney, because our favorite media organization. Maybe a minute on Disney before we wrap it up, Suraj. I'm sure everyone would love to hear.
Oh, I mean, Disney is a similar use case again. But again, as I said, all these applications are almost same, right? The data is different. In Disney, there's a lot of these drawings. They have all these cartoons, the images, the video files. They have a huge data of this video and image data that they have. Apart from that, a lot of customer feedback, right? A lot of customer experience, the reviews and stuff come. So the data sets are slightly different, and that's what exactly are all ingested from those data sets into, again, I mean, the solution is similar. It's a parallel file system, right? The data sets can differ. So I don't have the application names of those, what Disney uses. I mean, that doesn't matter, but it's basically the data coming from all those, video files, images, drawings, some of the customer feedback, social media that they have, all the data is coming, then they parse it, they kind of run those applications in that parallel file system, and then feed that into the applications. They're going to use it for their visualization and customer experience, for example, right? So that's the Disney use case that we have. I mean, you mentioned about the banks. Banks has one of the big things that banks are going through is the call center transformation, right? How do you improve the customer? You talk about all these chatbots and automated voice support and all that. So that's another big area that they're going through. I mean, there are plenty of examples in the field.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you remember, in the early days of language translation codes, one of the experiments was translating the phrase, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, into Russian. And what came out of the other side was, the vodka is good, but the meat is rotten, right? So while thankfully our NLP results have become better, but a lot of our enterprises have the same problem as brought up by the original phrase, which is to say, the data and AI business strategy and ambitions are very enthusiastic, but the underlying infrastructure capabilities are just not built for modern AI. And modernizing your data infra is the horse that actually needs to go in front of the cart of use cases and monetization at scale, etc. And I think the trifecta of tenets that need to be kept at the center of this, which should inform our investments and efforts. I call them the three holy H's, right? Hyper performance support for AI ML workloads, hyper scalability, and hybrid cloud ready. And of course, all of this within the cocoon of industry standard securities and regulations, right? And for a lot of my, I think Suraj, for a lot of my modern similes, I go back to philosophy, because I think philosophy is considered as the mother of all disciplines, right? I mean, interesting fun fact, I'm sure, I don't know if you know this, but if you click on the first link of any article on Wikipedia and keep repeating it, 97% of the time you'll end up on the philosophy page, right? So I see a lot of modern similes to what Socrates, Plato, Aristotle said. And in particular, I like what Aristotle defines as the key characteristics of an argument, because for me, they are the same characteristics for a successful data ecosystem. He said an argument needs to be comprehensive, consistent, cohesive, and coherent, right? And today, with the muscle of solutions such as yours and the cloud, I think we can ensure all of the above for our own data systems too. We can make them comprehensive, consistent, cohesive, and coherent, right? And obviously, the recency and the current, the making data current, etc. Suraj, it's been brilliant speaking to you. Hopefully, we will catch up soon in person, either in India or Singapore, wherever it is.
Very soon.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Be safe. Shikha, back to you.
Thanks, everyone.
Well, build an elastic and hybrid cloud-ready data platform for AI, ML, and data analytics, and hence innovate faster. Suraj and Biswajit, thank you very, very much. I'm sure those conversations helped. And with that, it's quickly now time to take up your tweets, and especially this exhilarating one, which is from this is Anaconda Ramudu. I mean, I hope I'm saying that correctly. That's your Twitter handle. Says that 10th ranked super feel good, hashtag ETVTS, hashtag ET Unwired. So, wow, this comes like as a sweet surprise to me. You folks can also see who are the top 10 scorers on the leaderboard. Wow, I didn't know about this one, to be honest. So that's so good that real time you're able to track your scores and hence get to know as to, who all is bagging those Amazon gift vouchers. So keep it all coming. I think these good competitive energies always help us, right? So, right, of course, to see all of you being right on your toes is something that's uplifting for us as a team as well. So with that, I am quickly right now asking all of you to please keep sharing your tweets, keep tagging us. There is a panel discussion that's coming up, which will be pivoted around AI-powered business intelligence, the future of analytics. I have my panel backstage, but I'll just quickly rope them in. Allow me just a few seconds. We'll be right back.